Good afternoon and welcome to the episode of the Ad Drop Podcast. I'm your host, Terrence Biggs. It is Wednesday. You know what it is. The the most beloved figure in the history of El Segundo, California. Also, Cal State Northridge's favorite son. On top of that, the managing editor of Last Word on College Sports, my guy, Tony Siracusa. Tone, how goes it, my man?
Brother Biggs, I think you may have gone just an inch too far with that one. The most beloved, boy, that one may be a stretch, but I'm doing well. And thanks to the people who reached out, had some concern because I was losing my voice at the end of our last show. And I did wind up with a throat infection, which has haunted me for a few days. But I got lots of advice from people to drink this kind of tea or that kind of tea. So we're just going to nip that in the bud. I don't drink tea. I hate tea. I hate every form of tea. I don't like hot tea, herbal tea, iced tea, sweet tea here in the South. I hate tea. I hate all of it.
The,
And no, putting honey in it doesn't work because I'm a type 2 diabetic. So no honey in the diet. I use agave when I'm cooking as a substitute for honey, but you can't put agave in tea. It doesn't make it any better. I'm not sure anything makes tea better. But thanks for the thanks for the advice anyway, people. I appreciate the concern, but no, there won't be any tea in my diet.
no tea, no, like you said, herb, none of that. But a fan of the wing tea, which is always a good time.
Well, sure. The wing tea was a fun offense to watch back in the day.
Funniest part is when my son and I we will play uh, college football, and he will choose your Alabamas, your Oregons, your high flying offenses. Me, I'll take a service academy, please, and then I'll proceed to run the
Sure.
ball and
The
upset
triple
him.
option.
So mad. I'm like, I'm sorry, son. I've had the ball for 85% of the game. You,
You can always you can find a way to like go old school, go to like an old Oklahoma team with Billy Sims running the wishbone, something like that, or I am hip at Nebraska running the wishbone.
exactly.
One of the great college football names, by the way, of all
Yes,
time.
it is.
Isaiah Moses Hip, who went by his initials, I am hip.
Hey,
He's a Facebook friend of mine, by the way.
are you serious?
Yeah,
That's
yeah, great
awesome.
guy. Oh, terrific guy. Isaiah Mo. We used to when I was working in the newsroom at the NPR station back when I was in college. We used to keep a nickname like or a college sports name list. It had to be their name. We counted I am hip because those were his initials. Jarvis Redwine. I don't know if you remember him with Oklahoma. There was a guy at Notre Dame, Hiawatha Francisco. That was a
That sounds
great
familiar.
name. That was a great name. We ended the contest when we got an intern named Bambi Sycophus. And we're
Oh,
like,
jeez.
okay, she may not play sports, but there's no name that's going to top Bambi Sycophus.
No,
Contest hereby ended.
ended. Now, before we get into the games,
Sure.
as I need to talk about a member of a fellow member. Petros Papadakis lives in, I'm guessing he lives in the LA area. He's from LA,
hmm
played fullback at
hmm
USC,
hmm
should kind of know a lay of the land.
hmm
Why on earth does this man persist on thinking that UCLA should build an on-campus football stadium when we've talked about it? It
You
doesn't
can't.
really work that way. Now,
You can't.
there's been a lot to go on with UCLA. As someone who
Sure.
covers it, the
Mhm.
floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, this guy weird fast. Bruin Report Online, which is part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Tracy Pearson runs it. Tracy has been around covering UCLA. Boy, long time. I got to think longer than any of the other reporters there. So Tracy knows his stuff well and has always done a really credible job. There were rumors that UCLA was talking about leaving the Rose Bowl to go to SoFi Stadium. I didn't believe it. People like it's there's no way is it possible. On Sunday, Tracy ran a story that said he had sources inside the athletic department. UCLA had calculated it would take them about 60 to 80 million dollars to buy their way out of the Rose Bowl lease, um, and move to SoFi starting next season, that quickly, starting for the 2026 season. And like I said, Tracy, credit to Tracy for breaking the story. He's on top of his stuff. Not hasn't always been right over the years, but none of us are. I haven't been right with some of the stuff I broke either. I had sources lead me down a wrong path. It happens. But Tracy got this, and he got quotes from his sources and so on. So it seems to be there. It seems to be there because nobody at UCLA has come out to deny it. No one within the UCLA athletic department has said, nah, BRO's out on a limb. They're crazy. No one has come out to deny it. It's a complicated situation. UCLA's lease at the Rose Bowl runs through 2044.
Jeez.
This is the, I think, third lease. UCLA moved there in 83. They used to play at the Coliseum. When I grew up going to UCLA games, they played at the LA Coliseum. They were essentially tenant number 3 behind the Rams and USC. And they wanted their own footprint. They wanted their own they wanted their own identity and struck a deal with the Rose Bowl. Moved there in 83. They've had a series of leases that have been extended, renegotiated. This current one that they're in is about a 25-year lease that was signed by Dan Guerrero when he was still the athletic director. I don't know why you signed a 25-year lease on anything, frankly. But look, if they go to SoFi, they're back to being tenant number 3 behind the Rams and the Chargers. And I see people online talking about, oh, but it's, SoFi is the shiny new thing. It'll impress recruits. Imagine this, though. When you walk out, because I've talked to some former players, you walk out of the locker room and through the long tunnel before you get to the field, and there's no sign that it's UCLA. It's the Rams or the Chargers all over the tunnel, the locker room. You don't have a UCLA locker room. You don't have anything that says UCLA. Everything now is digital. And sure, some of the digital signs up there will UCLA and so on. But apparently the premise for the move is to make more money off of the upgraded and higher in number luxury suites that are there. Look, man, you're not selling out the luxury suites you have at the Rose Bowl. What makes you think you adding another 30% of luxury suites can get you that? You're not going to get more money out of sponsorship opportunities because as someone who, when I was running radio stations, dealt a lot with negotiating sponsorships for events, you're going to actually have to drop any sponsor you have that conflicts with a Rams sponsor. And I'm just making this up hypothetically. Let's say the Rams have Coca-Cola as a sponsor and you have Pepsi. You have to drop your Pepsi contract. You can't bring your Pepsi deal into the Rams Coca-Cola house. It doesn't work. You will be limited to the sponsors you can bring in, for that reason. And so I don't know where their vision is other than this is an excuse to get out of the visuals of 35, 40,000 people at a UCLA game at the Rose Bowl. SoFi seats about 15,000 fewer people than does the Rose Bowl. And if you watch a UCLA game, you notice UCLA has tarped over big parts of the end zones so that when someone's kicking a field goal and the TV cameras are looking that way, you're not seeing all those empty seats. Look, man, the problem isn't the Rose Bowl. The problem isn't that you can't go to SoFi. The problem is your on-field product sucks. That's the problem. I have, before I got back into professional media and was a UCLA season ticket holder, man, we were there for games during the Jim Moore era, during the Bob Toledo era, during the Terry Donahue era before that. But, you look even into the Jim Moore era where that place was packed. UCLA was competitive. They were in the race for the conference championship. They were beating the likes of Tennessee and Peyton Manning's first ever game when he came in as a substitute quarterback was at the Rose Bowl, Tennessee against UCLA, and UCLA trashed them. Um, they beat the Miamis, the Alabamas, the schools like that, Texas A&M. Now you're losing to New Mexico State and you're losing to Fresno State. And the Chip Kelly era was a debacle. Um, that's why, and this is Los Angeles. There are a million other things for you to spend your discretionary income on if your team isn't winning. The tailgating at the Rose Bowl is, I got to be honest, I have been to tons of stadiums. It's phenomenal at the Rose Bowl because you park either in the lot on this side of the stadium or on the golf course, this side of the stadium. They shut down the golf course during the fall because it gets torn up by the cars. We used to caravan 3 or 4 cars in one right behind the other. So we would take up this huge space. You just pop open the trunks, you tailgate right there. You don't have to carry stuff anywhere. You don't have to do anything. Tailgating at SoFi is limited. You pay $100 to park at SoFi. If you want a tailgating area, it's 140. Not all the parking lot areas there are tailgate areas. And it's on the concrete and whatever. It's not the fun of, going out and, doing whatever you do out on the grass fields and whatever. But, that's from the fan perspective. And I'm seeing a lot of, the fan sites. People are like, I'm dropping my season seats if they go. I don't want any part of it. Um, there is the argument with the students that is closer. SoFi is closer for the students. And this goes back to what you talked about with Petros, talking about an on-campus stadium. You can't have one at UCLA. You would have to tear apart the track and field stadium, Drake Stadium, build it into about a 40,000 seat stadium. And the homeowners who pay exorbitant property taxes in Bel Air, Brentwood, and Beverly Hills, the surrounding areas, will fight you for 10 years on it. And they will win because of the taxes they pay. They've got political clout. They don't want 50,000 people streaming out into their neighborhoods, as they exit the stadium. So going back then to the Rose Bowl, at least is UCLA's identity. The locker rooms, the tunnels, everything there, the banners that the Rose Bowl hangs at the front of the stadium as you're entering, everything about it says UCLA. And the luxury suite pavilion is called Terry Donahue Pavilion. I mean, it's all about UCLA. But I think that they're looking at it as we're not winning. We need a shot in the arm. And so this is that shot. I think it's misguided. You want to renegotiate your terms with the Rose Bowl? That's fine. I get it. But to just say you're going to leave and starting next season is ridiculous. Now, again, UCLA has not made a public comment about this, but they haven't denied it. They haven't denied Tracy Pearson's reporting. So that pretty much tells you all you need to know. So now where we are is the city of Pasadena and the Rose Bowl operating organization have filed a lawsuit against UCLA. What they did actually, they haven't filed the actual lawsuit yet. They filed for a temporary restraining order against UCLA making this move. About an hour before you and I started recording this, the judge denied the temporary restraining order. But this is interesting because, and here's where my constitutional law classes that I actually went to come in handy. For the temporary restraining order, you have to prove emergency status, that you need to shut this down today. It can't proceed into tomorrow because there are damages tomorrow. Um, and the judge said that the city and the Rose Bowl did not prove imminent damages in the immediacy. What the judge did say was that a review of the contract makes it clear UCLA is obligated to play its games at the Rose Bowl through 2044. And the contract is binding. Now, that will be settled at trial. So what happens next? They didn't get the TRO. UCLA can continue to be in discussions on terms with SoFi because there's nothing preventing them. What will happen now is the lawsuit will get filed, I'm going to guess probably by the end of the week, and it will seek an injunction. An injunction doesn't require that temporary or that immediacy factor to it. An injunction is asking the judge to say, you cannot proceed with this until we've reached a conclusion at trial, because we need to go through the discovery process. We need to go through the fact-finding process. We need both sides to be heard. You cannot proceed with any of this until we've concluded at trial. I've been through trials in the state of California. The dockets are pretty backed up. This isn't going to, there'll be lots of preliminary hearings and motions, but it won't actually go to trial for a year. So UCLA, if the judge grants the injunction, UCLA won't be moving next year. It may be able, if it wins a trial, it'll be the year after, or so on. The idea, and Tracy had written that UCLA's estimate was that it would take about 60 to 80 million to get out of the lease. That part is laughable. Not on Tracy's part. He's quoting his UCLA sources. That's laughable on the part of UCLA. I mean, you're looking at, you got another 19 years left in that lease. What is that, about $2 million a year in damages that you think you would have? Come on, man, get real. Here's the thing. The city of Pasadena allows 18 events per year at the Rose Bowl. Because it is a 90,000 seat stadium, and they, the people who live in the hillsides over, what's that area is known as the Arroyo Seco, they factor in traffic and things like that also. 18, that includes the Rose Bowl game. That includes the big 4th of July concert that they have every year. It includes whatever other concerts, international soccer matches, and for the past 40 years, it includes 6 UCLA home football games. If UCLA leaves, that is 1/3 of your event calendar wiped out. That is more than 60 to 80 million dollars. Our sources tell us the Rose Bowl, when they get to the dollar figures, are going to be looking at 200 to 250 million dollars in the lawsuit in damages if UCLA is allowed out. There is also talk, by the way, of suing the Rams for tortious interference. They're negotiating with UCLA at a time they know UCLA is under a binding contract. I don't know if anyone remembers, the NFL had to pay the city of St. Louis about $150 million to get the Rams back to Los Angeles. The NFL paid it because they had a vested interest in the Rams being back in LA. There's no one to cover this lawsuit off for the Rams if they get sued for tortious interference. So yeah, the crowds suck. The student, I was mentioned just for a moment about the student factor. SoFi is about 10 miles closer to the UCLA campus than is the Rose Bowl. UCLA runs student party buses to and from the Rose Bowl. You can drink, you can eat, and do whatever you want on the buses. And They run them all. But here's part of the reason why you can't make this decision based on the students and how close it is. They're not going anyway. UCLA is on the quarter system, which means school doesn't start until the end of September. Students miss the first 3 games of the season every year, no matter what, no matter where the game is. They're not on campus. They're not there. I mean, sure, some of the ones who live in the LA area, can get tickets and go, but for the most part, they're only there half the season anyway. You're not going to make a decision based on the students. You may say you are to try and get the support of the students, but that's not the reality. So, Judge turned down the TRO today, but made a statement that he thinks it's clear that UCLA has got an uphill battle if they're going to get out of this lease.
Now, when you look at the Rose Bowl, and
Mhm.
is there, instead of trying to break the lease, do you think there's a way possible for UCLA and the city of Pasadena to work together to update the Rose Bowl to renovate it?
There already actually is a city approved, they're awaiting state approval, a blueprint for the Rose Bowl for some upgrades to the Rose Bowl, which would actually shrink the seating size from it holds 92,000 for the Rose Bowl game. It holds about 85,000 for a regular season UCLA game. UCLA tarps off the first few rows of seats behind the player benches because you can't see over them. The Rose Bowl doesn't care. They sell them anyway, even if you can't see anything. Um, it means the Rose Bowl will take a little bit less money to do that because they won't have the same seating capacity, but they're going to enhance some of the suites. The suites are fine. They're not the best I've ever seen, but they're also not the worst I've ever seen. Um, and they will, with the reduced seating, they'll make the seating areas bigger. UCLA is individual seating from end zone to end zone, the actual individual seats. And then in the end zones, it's the bench seating, like I've been to campuses where the entire college football stadium is bench seating all the way around. UCLA is actually, and the Rose Bowl is individual seating from end zone to end zone. And then you get the bench seating in the end zones. So yeah, there are renovations already in the works for, I think they're scheduled for 2027.
Now, when you look at the Coliseum in USC, and
Mhm.
can that be renovated still? Because I'm sure they have done so much work on it. Because it's a
They
very
have.
old stadium.
It is
Is it
ancient.
is it smarter to try to renovate that, or if you have a place like Carson, who they tried to lure teams in teams in like other sports to come to Carson, is
Mm.
there a way possible to build something out there, or is it too far away?
The important factor there, and if we're talking about USC and the Coliseum, USC actually manages the Coliseum now. They
Oh,
actually have the management contract. They don't own it. The state of California still owns the Coliseum. It is a historic landmark, first built for the 1932 Olympics. And then they hosted the 84 Olympics, and now, of course, they'll be hosting a large part of the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles, first city ever to have 3 Olympics. Um, there's going to have to be some work done to the Coliseum because it used to have a track around the
remember that.
football field. They took it out. USC had it taken out to change the seating and kind of reconfigure the seating. USC put that through a renovation. I'm going to say about 5, maybe 6 years ago. There was an incredible waste of money put into the Coliseum in 1996 after the Northridge earthquake. They got money from FEMA for the damage done into the inside of the Coliseum. They actually made the repairs. What they should have done was gut it and redo it. You have to legally keep the facade, the outside, where people see the columns and the torch and all of that because it's a historic landmark. You can do whatever you want to the inside of it. And they actually spent the money on the repairs, which was stupid when they could have just gutted it. Um, it's because the courtyards and the food areas and stuff are not really very good at the Coliseum. They're pretty mediocre at the Rose Bowl. They're nice at SoFi at 3 times the price. You're not getting a $5 hot dog at SoFi, for a UCLA game. You're getting a $20 hot dog. That's the cost of doing business at a place like that. So this is going to be very fluid. Like I said, props to Tracy Pearson. When the rumor started, I didn't believe him, and Tracy brought the goods on Sunday.
I was like, now, last question about it. When you look at
Mhm.
how this breaks down, if UCLA wants to get out this bad, and you thinking it could be upwards of over $200 million, you don't see the city of Pasadena trying to settle for like half of that, right? They want the full amount.
I I can see a negotiated settlement that does not allow UCLA to get out next season or even the season after that. You've got 19 years left. We'll give you 10 more years, and charge you this instead. I can see a rearrangement of the lease coming through this, but it's not going to happen until we've gone through the discovery process in court, which won't happen until sometime early 2026.
Now, speaking of legal and litigation,
Mhm.
Brian Kelly and his lawyers in LSU, I've always been of the mind of if you sign a contract and if you're the one fired for call, like if you're fired and you should collect that buyout. What is the issue with the administration seemingly not wanting to pay all of it?
It's crazy, right? Coffee, by the way, not
Yes.
tea. um, it's crazy. LSU is embarrassing itself, quite frankly.
Again,
The amount of the buyout is somewhere, depending upon what numbers you believe, 50 to $53 million. Um, Kelly's agent, Trace Armstrong, said, "Yo, the money," right? Pretty simple. LSU is trying to negotiate that amount down. Now, we had already talked about he does have a duty to mitigate clause in his contract, which means for the next 12 months, he's got to look for work, whether it's TV work, radio work, coaching somewhere, doesn't matter. He's required to look for work. And he's got an offset clause that says that whatever money he makes at the next job reduces LSU's buyout number because the buyout is, I think, over 10 years in this case. He's not getting it all at once. Um, and nobody who has an offset clause gets it all at once
right.
because the whole point is we're trying to reduce the total buyout. But they sent Kelly an offer through Trace Armstrong for $25 million, all payable now. We'll get rid of the offset clause and the duty to mitigate if you take the 25 million and go away now. Kelly told him to take a flying leap, right? And why wouldn't he? Because even if I have another job and I'm making money, it's not going to equate to the $25 million gap between your offer and what you actually owe me, right? You're still going to owe me north of 35, 40 million. It's ridiculous. So now Kelly has filed a lawsuit. I filed earlier this week a 48-page lawsuit against LSU. Filed it in East Baton Rouge Parish, which is state court, basically saying he wants his money. Um, but LSU is now making claims saying, well, we never actually fired him. He was never actually legally terminated. He's not still a coach, is he? And you look at the LSU website, I looked at it, nothing there says Brian Kelly, head coach.
Oh,
Um, they're saying, but now they're going to fire him for cause. Cause. You didn't have cause before when you fired him. What cause has arisen in the last 3 weeks?
Money.
That's different. Right. Yeah, that's it. That's 100% it. Right. Yeah. The cause is I saw someone post uh, for anyone who remembers the TV show The Office with Michael Scott and him telling corporate, I have cause. It's because I don't like them. That,
Yes,
that's what this is. It's because we don't want to pay the money. It's ludicrous. I mean, you had the governor hold a press conference to announce that Kelly was being fired. He's fired, period. You don't get to go back and review that now. You didn't fire him for cause before. You don't get to unfire him and refire him now. It doesn't work like that. Um, I gotta be honest, man. LSU is diminishing its ability to find the next head coach, right? Because this is just a freaking circus. The only one I can think of who would still go is Ed Orgeron because he just wants to go back there so badly. I don't think he cares. Um, the governor, and who then fired the athletic director for giving Kelly this tremendous buyout agreement in his contract. All of this, the board of trustees, it's a circus, and it's embarrassing to the university. We've talked about which coach goes where. You really think Lane Kiffin is still interested in this, sitting there watching this? There's no way. I can't imagine any coach currently working, currently employed, still interested in this job after all of this.
it is a radioactive, toxic environment that this, the way they're handling the Kelly situation will probably be, it'll take a couple of coaching tenures just to get the dark cloud off of this
Yeah,
because
sure.
like you said, no coach is going to walk in and say, "Okay, I'm going to sign here." No, they they have pretty much taken themselves out of the Kiffin, Eli Drinkwitz, James Franklin
Yes,
type of sweepstakes.
yes.
All those guys are not
Agreed.
coming there. John Summerall is an hour away at Tulane, right there in New Orleans. He wouldn't step. No,
No way. Yeah, he knows the inner workings of the board of trustees and the state and the connection there as well as anybody. There's no way. They've embarrassed themselves with this. Um, and I don't see any way out of it for them.
no.
I don't see any judge who's going to say, "You're right, you didn't fire him. That press conference didn't actually happen." You're right. Um, the way LSU is handling this, it wouldn't surprise me if by the time we're done recording this, you go check their website and Kelly's picture is back up there.
Exactly. It's such a mismanagement. Like when the governor of the state who has other issues like, I don't know, state literacy, the educational system from K to 12 is awful,
Right?
uh, joblessness,
Yep.
crime, you name it.
Yep.
But let me put my 2 cents into a college football job.
Right? Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Just they're costing themselves, not just the coaches, but the recruits.
Hmm. Absolutely. Because no one wants to walk into this circus. You don't know who the coach is going to be. You know that some of the big name coaches are going to back away. Most of these kids have agents now by the time because they have agents doing NIL contracts for them and negotiating with the school. Now that the schools can do revenue sharing, you're allowed to have an agent negotiate those things for you. There are rules that you cannot have that same agent negotiate your NFL deals down the road. And so unfortunately, most of the agents at this level are, some local mope, who is working out of a storefront in, somewhere in the Ninth Ward, with no real legal background, and a family hires them. And, that's a pretty common story these days. Um, but nonetheless, they've got agents, and the agents are telling them, you don't want any part of this right now, man. These guys, LSU is not going to out negotiate Trace Armstrong. You got Jimmy Sexton, you got Clint Dowdle, and you got Trace Armstrong. those three guys pretty much have easily half of the top line college football coaches under their wing. And you're not getting out of this, man.
Trace Armstrong has had that Forrest Gump slash. I mean, it's just he has that type of career where it's just like
Sure.
defensive end,
Yep.
and the president of the NFLPA,
Yep.
and now agent to the top
Super
tier,
agent.
super
Yeah,
agent.
super agent. He really is. He
So
absolutely is.
he's had a Walter Mitty type of life where it's
Yes. Yes.
just doing everything all at once. Now,
Mhm.
speaking of everything all at once, the Big Ten and private equity.
Okay.
Now, if am I to read this right that USC and Michigan are the last two holdouts?
They are for now. I think there's going to be more. And I think we need to make a really super important distinction that this is private capital, not private equity.
Or capital.
And I know a lot of people printing that it's private equity, and I'm going to tell you it's not. And the really important distinction is this: having spent 25 years of family life in the private equity world, that private equity in and of itself requires ownership in exchange for the investment. So we buy, and we'll remove it from the college sports element for a moment. Let's say we're going to buy um, this. What would we buy? We're going to buy this broadcast company. Okay. Matter of fact, for a good period of time, Learfield Sports was owned by a private equity company. Okay. And they they're going to infuse this amount of money. You're going to get X amount, but we are going to take controlling share or controlling votes on the board of directors. We're not going to give you this money and let you continue to drive the car into the ditch the way you've been doing, which is why you need our money. We are the tow truck to get you out of the ditch, but we're going to take over ownership of the car as well. And they will do it for, an extended period of time, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, depends on what it is, to try and turn it around. But we're not going to let you keep making those decisions after we've given you the money. Clearly, a conference cannot do private equity because there's no ownership for you to relinquish. You don't own anything. The conference is owned by the membership institutions, the member institutions. The conference as a whole doesn't own anything. Um, so there's no, and this is where Larry Scott, and I don't want to get too far off the rails. This is where Larry Scott ran into just enormous problems with the Pac-12 back in 2019. He went through a summer tour of private equity companies asking for $750 million of investment for the Pac-12, and the only thing he could promise was a return on investment. Well, that's just not the way it works. I actually have a copy of his presentation. I had to black out part of it on the front because he had watermarked people's names that were there for you put that in a watermarks, and I wanted to protect my sources. So there's big magic marker on some of it on the front. But there's nothing in there as to an actual equity ownership stake. There's just return on investment. Well, that's not good enough. Now you go to private capital, and that's different. All they're looking for is we're going to get X amount return on our investment within X amount of years. And the conferences can do that. Mind you, schools can do private equity. Florida State is taking private equity money, but you have ownership that you can give up. You can give the private equity company 3 seats on the board of trustees or the board of governors or whoever it is who's running your school. So you have an ownership stake that you can essentially sell off, long term or short term. The capital infusion for the Big Ten is literally just billions of dollars that we are hopeful to get back. USC and Michigan are opposed to it, but what you're starting to hear more is school administration say, we haven't even seen all the details yet. that Tony Petitti is ready to agree to it. And we haven't come out and said we're opposed to it. We're coming out and saying we don't know what it is. We don't know how much we're getting, what they get in return, what the requirements are. I think it's a dangerous game that Petitti is playing, getting in bed with investors like this. There's no sign that they need it. They've got the best TV contract in the country right now. They've got 4 more years until those TV contracts expire, and the next one will go up. Um, so I don't understand the need for it. The schools aren't asking for it. You cannot find a school in the Big Ten who is going to the conference offices and saying, "We need you to find a way to get us another 100 million a year more." There is not a school that's done it. So where is this coming from? It's unnecessary and it's flirting with danger.
Because if this goes bad for the Big Ten, I mean, it through I think Jim Delaney was the his a predecessor.
Mhm.
Through people like that, they built good, bad, or indifferent a monster-sized conference, and that generates a ton of revenue via
Right.
their
Well,
existing deal.
and Kevin Warren after Delaney before, they've got the huge TV contracts. This seems like a panic move that we're worried about the economics of college sports, and there's certainly a lot to be worried about. If there are problems with schools being able to have enough for the revenue sharing that they're now legally allowed to do, there are ways around that. One, you don't have to do the 20.5 million. You can do whatever it is you deem fit. 20.5 million is the cap. But Rutgers is getting, and I'm just using them as an example of traditional bottom teams in the conference. Rutgers is getting $75 million a year from the conference in TV revenue alone. That doesn't even count the postseason revenue sharing from all the schools that make the March Madness tournament or make bowl games. That's just the TV revenue. Man, you can't come up with the 20 million or 19 million or whatever for revenue sharing. That's a you problem, not an us as a conference problem. And the conference shouldn't be looking to bail out any individual school like that.
It's particularly dangerous because it just lends itself to, I think it takes away what a lot of what, not a lot, but some of what they've tried to establish there is, they are known for the higher educational standard, which won't be affected at all, but it's the reputation
Hmm.
of
Sure.
the conference from just a standpoint of you. I know that from what just talking to people in and around the Big Ten, they hold themselves to a higher standard than SEC
Sure.
schools because of the
Sure.
quality of education.
Educational factor, sure. Because you got Northwestern and you've got Michigan and you've got some high-end academic. Now you've got UCLA, which is generally rated as the top, one or two public school in the country. So yeah, there's no question. Look at what the ACC did. They capitulated to Clemson and Florida State that the new revenue sharing model would be in part based on TV ratings, right? If you're so good and you're getting these elevated ratings, you're going to get a bigger share of that pie before we distribute it to everybody else. Now Clemson and Florida State, who the heck's even still watching them on TV? It's dreadful to even think about. It's like stop being so reactionary. Settle in. This is a forever changing landscape right now. When the TV contracts come up for renewal again, we're going to see a new realignment of conferences. The ACC, as it sits here today, is not going to be the ACC we see 5 years from now. When they settled the lawsuit with Clemson State, they allowed them to out with their broadcast rights in their pocket in 2000 after the 2029-2030 season. They will leave. And North Carolina is going to follow, and probably Miami. There's going to be a whole realignment of the conferences all over again.
The ACC, after the presumed mass exodus, they might become a not so much a group of five conference, but they might be still a power four, but barely.
It's going to depend who they merge with. There's going to need to be a merger with another conference or a pilfering of other schools from another conference. Remember, the ACC wasn't always the way it is now. It raided the Big East and tore down Big East football when it took Pitt and Miami and Boston College and Syracuse and so on. So it's, there's a lot that will happen over the next 5 years. I don't see why Tony Petitti is feeling the pressure to do this right now.
And just from a outside viewpoint, the Big Ten is in a solid financial,
Mhm,
they're good financially. Like they're
mhm.
fine. They'll be fine. But it's just
Yeah,
not so much how much is enough, but the timing and just it feels unnecessary.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Now, speaking of what is necessary, Wake Forest has decided to embark upon a late season win streak to keep you out of Boston.
Apparently, as of now, yeah, they still got 3 games left. So, I'm not putting my parka away just yet. But yeah, the with the win at Virginia last week, the bowl looks to be upgraded according to our Kevin McGuffey with the bowl projections, which came out this afternoon, Wednesday. He now has Wake Forest going to the Military Bowl in Annapolis, Maryland. Still cold, but not Boston cold. 2 days after Christmas. I'm good with it. A lot easier to get to from Charlotte. Now, if they win out, which that's going to be tough to do. They play North Carolina this weekend at home, Delaware at home, and then Duke on the road to end the season. Um, if they win out, Kevin says there's the possibility of thinking about the Duke's Mayo Bowl, which, brother, I got to tell you, that's 20 minutes from my house. I am all for that during the holidays.
One thing I noticed in watching the game because of our conversation and just watching, I think about last year's team, the last couple of years. I'm thinking this year's team.
Mm.
I can't remember a Wake Forest team in the last 2, 3 years being this fast. Good grief on defense,
Yeah.
just they swarm to the ball. And in my life, I'm like, is that Wake Forest is swarming all over the field on defense? Jake Dickert has done one of the most incredible jobs that
Mm.
I've seen this year. I know that there are other schools with other coaches because of their record,
Mm.
but he needs to get a little bit of coach of the year recognition, just a little bit.
Yeah, he'll maybe get some votes within the ACC. I don't think he's going to get them on a national basis. I mean, not when you've got Mike Elko doing what he's done at Texas A&M. Tony Elliott at Virginia is going to get a lot of votes within the ACC and maybe some nationally as well. But yeah, it's look 4-8 the last 2 years. They're now 6-3. Have a couple of winnable games. The game at Duke is going to be incredibly tough. But the defense is the biggest difference because Wake still does not have a good quarterback situation. Rotating the 2 quarterbacks, and it's trying to find a hot hand anywhere for any length of time. But the defense is much more aggressive than what Dave Clawson had the last 2 or 3 years. And Clawson would say he didn't have the talent. Half of this defense was on that roster under Clawson. So I think maybe it's the way they get used. Scotty Hazelton, who has been an assistant coach at Michigan State, was an analyst at Texas last year. He and Dickert know each other from their time as assistant coaches at Wyoming. He was the one that Dickert brought in to run the defense, and it's and so Hazelton is going to get some votes for the Frank Broyles Award for the best assistant coach in the country. No doubt about that. But yeah, it's having watched 3 seasons now. This is my 4th season of Forest football. Yeah, this is the best defense they've seen in my time here.
It's just and the aggression, just the fact that
Mhm.
on defense that they in years past you could kind of see not so much timidity, but you could see just I'm not sure if it was scheme, but like you said, half the players have been there.
Right. It was timid before. It was not a lot of faith in the secondary. So, we're afraid of getting burned deep. So we're going to back up 10 steps off the receivers and try and keep everything in front of us. And all that did was allow teams to, get chunk yardage in front of you and burn more clock on their way to the same touchdown they were going to get anyway. It was a lack of faith in the personnel that Clausen had, and sadly, he was vocal about it at the end of the season last year. Would talk about he wanted other defensive backs but couldn't afford them in the portal. That's if I'm a defensive back, I don't know why I want to play for that guy after that. But um, this is definitely different. It's much more forward moving. You saw a play where, and I know we've talked about this young man before, Nick Anderson, one of the safeties, who was a walk-on back in 2020. And so, now he's team captain. He's been all conference, second team last year, will be all conference again this year. And, sniffed out the running play, was 10 yards in the defensive backfield, sniffed out the run play, full steam ahead, made the tackle 1 yard beyond the line of scrimmage. That's how aggressively and quickly he got up there. That's just kind of the way they are right now. They don't give up. Last year they finished the season somewhere around 95th or 96th total defense in the country. They're 32nd right now. And that includes the beatdown they took at Florida State. So it's a big difference.
To me, it's also their just the ability not to give up passing touchdown. I think they give up
Yeah.
7, which is
Yeah.
tied for eighth nationally out of 136 teams. That is ridiculous. Like, it's funny because they don't pick off too many passes, but
No, they don't.
they don't allow massive gains. That's
No, they're
huge.
not giving up the explosive plays, especially the explosive pass plays on defense, the way they had the last 3 years. If they had this is no disrespect to Robbie Ashford or to Deshaun Purdy, but if they had a higher level quarterback right now, they'd be at 7 to 8 wins already. The offense sputters. Even with a running back like Damon Claiborne, the offense sputters.
I mean, if like you said, they
If
had
they had
someone like
Hank Bachmeier like they did last year, it'd be a different offense and different record right now.
if they had Sam Hartman,
Oh goodness.
they possibly be a top 10 team.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. It's I guess next in the offseason it'll be Dickard's mandate to find a quarterback. You got to find one.
There's
You
gonna be a
have to.
lot. I mean, Ashford graduate. Well, he's on his sixth year, so he's out of eligibility. Purdy is a sophomore transfer from Charlotte, so he's got more time. But yeah, you gotta have something else in
I mean, it has to be. Now, looking towards
Maybe they
these,
can get the other Bachmeier. Maybe they can go get Bear from BYU.
I mean, to trade
I
was it
love that kid.
Provo for Winston-Salem in a heartbeat.
Right?
Like it's not
Right.
even it's not even an I guess. I mean, you have Winston-Salem and Provo, Utah. Winston-Salem will always be for the win. I mean,
Absolutely.
if you had to compare the two.
And I
Now,
love a quarterback who wears number 47.
right, looking like a Leroy Irvin clone,
There you go. There you go.
but it is these games are interesting and a couple like Alabama and Oklahoma. You have
Hmm.
Alabama with a strong offensive line going against possibly one of the most active pass rushes in college football.
Yeah. Yeah,
Do
this is the toughest team Alabama's faced all year. Oklahoma's got the best scoring defense in the conference, seventh best scoring overall nationally, in the entire country. They're giving up less than 14 points a game. This is going to be a huge test for Alabama's offense and for Ty Simpson, but I don't think Oklahoma's got the offense to hang in there with Alabama. John Mateer has not been the same, obviously, since his hand. I'm not blaming him. I mean, give him credit for even trying. But this game isn't, Alabama still wound up number 4 in last night's poll, Tuesday night's updated playoff poll, and Oklahoma's number 11. So this is a must-win for Oklahoma to stay in the playoff picture race. It's not a must win for Alabama, but it's pretty close. They're going to need a lot of help to get to the conference championship game if they don't win this. But while I like Oklahoma's defense a lot, I don't think the offense has the weapons to stay with Alabama.
Material. I think that after the hand injury, he was rushed back, and he doesn't.
Yeah,
He just doesn't seem the same person pre-injury. Like he doesn't seem the same person that played Auburn and just was
right,
phenomenal, or
right.
played
Agreed.
Temple, or played Michigan. It just this might be one where you look at head coach Brent Venables and say you could have just let him like sit and play the sophomore. I know it probably would have lost you a few more games, but you lost those games with Mateer now.
Right, exactly. I mean, they Oklahoma loses this, they drop to 7-3, and they're out of the playoff race.
I see Alabama winning a low scoring game, but still being able to win by a touchdown.
I think they win by 10. I'm giving them 10 points. Because I think Simpson is playing well enough that look, the Alabama offensive line has only given up 3 sacks in the last 3 games. So they're protecting them well. And even though this is the best defensive line they faced all year, I think that I think they can defend or protect Simpson.
Exactly. Pitt and Notre Dame, you have
Mhm.
uh, Jeremiah Love versus the third stingiest run defense in all of
Yeah,
FBS, which is
right.
a testament to Pat Narduzzi. Kind of a little bit like the Oklahoma game where you have such a strong defense, but the offense is
Hmm.
on Pitt. I think with Notre Dame, they have balance, which Pitt doesn't. I think that they will take control of the game after halftime and kind of not coast, but it'll be close early. But I just think that they have too much for Pitt.
Well, let's be clear. With Notre Dame at number 9, you have the commissioners of the ACC, SEC, Big Ten, and Big 12 all rooting for Pitt because a loss takes Notre Dame out of the playoff, and some conference is going to get another team in. I don't think it's going to be the ACC, but you know they're rooting for Pitt anyway for obvious reasons. Um, I think that you've got Notre Dame is on a 7 game winning streak. I mean, those losses to A&M and M and Miami seem like another lifetime ago, the way they're playing right now. Um, Jeremiah Love is averaging about 8.5 yards a carry over the last 3 games for Notre Dame. And while Pitt's defense is really good, I mean, the run defense only allows 2.5 yards a carry. Um, it's the linebackers that are really good. Kyle Louise, especially. But the Pitt offense, they got a freshman quarterback again, like they did last year, Mason Heinstell. And he's good. He's played very well. But you haven't played a defense like this yet. And so I think it's close. The game's at Pitt. First time in I think it's like 20 years. The college game day has gone to Pitt. Pitt hasn't given them much of a reason to go up until now. The Panthers are 7-2. They're 5-1. They're one of 4 teams in the ACC that is 5-1. So it's chaos in the ACC, and then you have Duke right behind them at 4-1. Um, they're going to make a big deal out of it. Aaron Donald is having his number retired at Pitt, which leads me to believe it wasn't already retired. Why not? What are you waiting for? And Notre Dame after this is it for Notre Dame because after this they've got Syracuse and Stanford.
Yeah,
So this is it. This is your playoff game if you're Notre Dame. I think it's close for a half before Notre Dame pulls away in the second half.
I agree. Texas and Georgia.
Mhm.
Texas, Georgia, it's funny. I watched them play multiple games. I have a respect for Gunnar Stockton in the offense because he is the king of doing just enough. Like they won't, I mean, they engage in shootouts with Ole Miss, but Ole Miss, it's just one of those things. But Georgia's defense is not the Georgia defense of old where you had phenomenal interior push and you had You still have playmakers at a linebacker, and you have, but it's just their defense gives up a lot of yards.
Look, I mean, Joey Aguilar was like bombs away on Georgia's defense. That should be a concern. They almost pulled out the win. Here's this is very much intertwined with the Alabama game also, because you're looking at the SEC conference race and where these teams are going to lay out. Texas A&M is at number 3, right? And you've got Alabama at number 4, and you've got Georgia at number 5. So all of these go a long way. Texas is number 10, um, but still only one conference loss. So all of these games, that Texas Georgia game and the Alabama Oklahoma game, have a huge impact on each other in terms of the conference championship race. If Alabama loses to Oklahoma or to Auburn, then Georgia is in the SEC championship game. So there's a little bit of scoreboard watching that goes on between these two games as well. But look, the Texas offense has been painfully inconsistent over the course of the season. It doesn't run very well. And with Arch, you don't know what you're getting from one week to the next. Not yet. He's going to be a good quarterback. But the Arch Heisman campaign at the beginning of the season has proven to be absurd. He's not there yet, man. He's nowhere near it yet. And Texas has to win out to be assured of a playoff spot for itself. Georgia is getting better. The defense isn't really where it should be. The offense, like you said, with Gunnar Stockton, is getting better week to week. Whereas Texas feels like it's on a survive and advance mode. It's just surviving games, not so much winning games. Um, and so even though Texas has this great defense in terms of sacks, number 1 in the nation, I don't see Texas's offense being able to keep pace with Georgia's offense. And so I think, and the game's at Georgia, and I think that matters. There are a handful of places where it matters, and this is one of them. And so I think Georgia wins a close one.
I think with Texas, this would be their third loss.
Mm-hmm.
They're out.
They're
This
out.
might be they're out. Plus, if they won, they still got to play Texas A&M. Again, a
Yes.
loss. I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah. Absolutely
and
correct.
I saw where there was Paul Feinbaum say no matter what he thinks because of the strength of schedule that Texas would be in. No, they're not going to allow
No.
a full loss team, Paul. No,
Nope. Nope.
that's not really going to happen. I see Georgia winning this
I do
because,
too.
like you said, Arch Manning, for all his talent, is wildly inconsistent.
Hmm. Agreed. Yeah. You don't know who you're getting from one week to the next.
Now, the playoff committee during the wrap up, they had a few choice
You
words
guys are
for
funny.
ACC. Now you have Mac Rhodes. Speaking of Mac Rhodes,
Yeah.
do you think he will keep his spot even after the investigation that he apparently put his hands on the player?
Yeah, because I think that, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it was years ago
Yeah,
and it's just now coming to light. And did he handle it correctly? He absolutely did not when he was at Baylor. But, I'm looking at it now and I'm thinking, okay, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do to the guy at this point to punish him? Get an apology and I
yeah,
handled it poorly. And I think that'll be the end of that.
I agree. But they had words for the ACC again. Is it because of the ACC's outward perception, or did they just felt like, people just feel like they can take liberties with saying whatever?
I think it's some of both and probably a little bit more of some other stuff too. I mean, look, week 1, they didn't hold the ACC in very high regard. Virginia, who was number 1 in the conference, was 14th out of the playoff race. Now, of course, whoever wins the conference is in, period. But they said a week ago, we don't really think much of Virginia and the consistency. And then Virginia went out and got beat by Wake Forest. So kind of like, well, okay, I guess they saw something. But yeah, Rhodes took some shots again when they were talking about the ACC and Georgia Tech. They jumped Miami ahead of Georgia Tech, in the new one. And so the question was the view of the ACC. And he said, with regards to Georgia Tech, they were idle. And then the last game before that, they didn't play well on either side of the ball and lost to NC State. With Georgia Tech, we look at the metrics. Um, their schedule strength is working against them when you think about just any non-conference signature wins. And he said, again, just in general with the ACC, their lack of non-conference signature wins other than Miami over Notre Dame hurts them. And so we went back and we looked, and when you look at Georgia Tech and who they've beaten, excuse me, it really isn't much. Colorado, Gardner Webb, and Temple. Where's the big win in any of that, right? UVA, Coastal Carolina, and William and Mary. Those are their out of conference wins right now. There's nothing there. He's not wrong.
And I mean, it'll be, who do you think wins the ACC?
Georgia Tech. I still think they'll win it.
Same.
I mean, they're 5-1 in conference, 8-1 overall. SMU is 5-1. Pitt's 5-1. UVA is 5-1. But again, what Pitt's signature wins? Duquesne, Central Michigan, and they lost to West Virginia. That doesn't go well. SMU beat East Texas A&M and Mississippi State, but lost to Baylor and lost to TCU. So they're not wrong about the out of conference scheduling for the top teams in the conference. The in a strange bit with Virginia, they lost to NC State in an out of conference game earlier in the season because they both had teams or schools that dropped them from the schedule. And so they each had a void they had to fill. So they played each other, but in a non-conference game. But that counts as an out of conference loss to Virginia. And again, William and Mary and Coastal Carolina. So what? So he's not wrong, and it's hurting the conference, especially with Virginia losing. I think right now what you're looking at really is one team getting the conference champion getting into the playoffs, and that's it. Last year, SMU didn't have any conference losses. It lost the conference championship game, but that was it. You're not going to leave them out. They had no conference losses the rest of the season. Right now, you're looking at Virginia dropped to 19th. Georgia Tech is the number one school in the ACC school in the rankings at 18th. I'm sorry, 16th. That's not good, man. That's not good. You've got a boatload of, I take that back. I forgot about Miami. Miami's at 15. I forgot they jumped Miami over Georgia Tech, but still 15. And we know that Miami is vulnerable. So it's not a good look for the conference. And you're likely going to wind up with just the one team, the conference champion that makes the playoffs.
You think this will spur a conversation in the following years about teams within the conference before the league probably splits, but before the great split happens, do you think there'll be a push for teams to schedule tougher opponents?
Well, yes and no. Remember, in not next year, but the year after, the conference is going to nine conference games, from 8 to 9 conference games. So they're going to play fewer out of conference games, but they are also going to mandate that you can't play them all against FCS or G5 schools. There has to be a Power 4 school in that mix of 3 out of conference games. So the move was already in place, but they're being hurt now. The move's in place for the future. They're being impacted now.
I think the first school that will contact Maryland or Rutgers for that for the out of conference schedule is going to be there'll be a line outside of those two schools' doors
Sure
of
there
teams
will.
wanting to play them. Like,
Sure there will.
they fit the description barely, but they fit the description. Now,
Exactly.
speaking of description, as
Yeah,
a veteran writer, when you
sure.
are about to compose a story, what do you look for as far as trying to construct your first paragraph?
Wow. Is this one of the questions you got from your audience? All right.
Yes.
All right. A fair question. Um, I'm going to I'm boy, being totally transparent, I'm going to say that I don't write from notes. I don't take a lot of notes. In a game, when I'm caught in the press box, yeah, I have a lot of notes because I go through drives that while they're going on feel like they could be important. They wind up not being important and put a big X through it. Um, but I've made notes on what I feel are significant plays or significant drives so that I can go back and reference when that was in the game, and what the score was, what the circumstances were. But in general, if I'm writing a preview column, if I'm writing the Sunday summary column, I don't have more than maybe 3 bullet points of notes, if even that. The Sunday summary, we try and cover 6, 7 topics. I do that off maybe 2 to 3 bullet points, and the rest I write stream of conscience. I literally start typing and I'm just going. I get lost in my head and I'm typing something. I said, "Oh, wait, well, I brought that up. Let me kind of pivot next to this." So I've got like 15 tabs open on my lap while I'm writing. Um, but to the question of, and I say that just so you to answer the question of that opening paragraph, if it's a game post game column, I try and make it pretty straightforward because you have to. Um, my company wishes to the Lord's name that I wouldn't because it's not click friendly enough. I don't want to call it clickbait, but it's not click friendly enough. Um, they want to do something to draw people in, but look, man, you got to give them the details of at least the score and who won and what it means, but then you can go from there. I I always remember that as you and I have talked about, my job is telling a story. So, what is my lead into telling the story? I have to be able to segue from this is the story I'm going to tell to the ensuing paragraphs of me actually telling the story. I have to at least tell you what story it is that I'm going to tell. So if it's a column, I literally am just making it up off the top of my head. And I'll tweak it once or twice while I'm writing because as I'm writing, I'll say, well, I didn't really tell the story that I set up here, so I need to tweak it. Um, but for the most part, it's just how am I going to tell the story? Um, how am I going to convey that in a couple of sentences in the first paragraph? It's a lot easier with the game coverage because it just is what it is. Um, the other stuff, like I said, the Sunday summary, as I'm looking through my 3 or 4 bullet points, I'll see if there's a connective tissue there and what it is. I don't know if you saw my one last Sunday. There was no connective tissue to be had, but I'm sitting there typing it. And I turned off the games that I had recorded and was watching. I'm like, I need to not be watching football while I'm typing this. And The Godfather was on. I'm like, now I have a theme because we've got these teams that are settling scores.
Yes.
Now we
Ah,
have a theme. We're bringing clarity to the big picture, settling scores. And it wound up working all the way through, you know,
see.
1,500 word column inspired by seeing that The Godfather was on.
Hey, there you
And
go. Now,
the best, if you look at the picture that's posted inside the article, the best 10 seconds of cinematic history when when he's telling Michael when Michael's hiding out in Sicily and he's telling Michael, I need to move you to Syracuse for your safety. Ah, there you go.
Hey,
The
see, it
best 10
works.
seconds of cinematic history.
See, it works. No, it's like it's like making food without a recipe basically. And
Mhm.
speaking of food and the recipes, what was the one dish when you and the missus first started dating that she made that you were like, that was just a revelation, like stunning how good it was?
Oh man. I mean, she's a good cook. So she made several things that were really good, but she made this linguine with melted brie and sun-dried tomatoes and garlic that was just phenomenal.
I need
It
that
was,
recipe.
yeah, it was pretty phenomenal. Now it's funny because you talk about, excuse me, the cooking and the recipes and the guidelines. I do most of the cooking in the house now because I work from home and it's easier. And I like to cook. My wife does all the baking. I hate baking. I hate it. Hate it with a passion. It's too precise. Any misstep in the measurements and you throw off everything, right? That's not me. I'm the guy who just said I don't write notes for my columns. I write stream of consciousness. I clearly am not the guy who wants to follow a recipe. I'm the guy who I drive my corporate people nuts because I don't want to follow all these SEO guidelines for click friendly articles. I want what I want, and it drives them nuts to the point I get yelled at via messages pretty much weekly now. Um, but that's why I like the cooking because you can tinker with it as you go along. You've got your guideline, you've got your bullet points. To me, the recipe is the bullet points. But I can say, you know what? Instead of this, I'd like this instead. Um, making a Mexican pesto sauce instead of an Italian pesto sauce because you replace the basil with cilantro and you replace the pine nuts with pepitas and it changes the course of it and you use it over chicken just because I was like that just sounds different, let's give it a shot, and it works. So I do most of the cooking during the week because it's easier for me since I work from home. And this time of year, it's not always the most creative stuff because I'm a little busy right now. So I look at my whiteboard back there, and I've got my Bolitnikoff ballot due Friday and my Lombardi semifinalist ballot due this weekend.
Yep.
And then Sunday, we have the first of three FWAA 3 hour long Zoom calls as we start to narrow down the All American team. So a little busy right now, but I do most of the cooking, but I like it because they're bullet points, and then you just go wherever you want to go with it.
My fiance would be the exact same. She cooks the majority. I'm the baker. There's something about just being able to be in the kitchen and bake. She is more of she cooks by feel. Like this feels right.
I
This
do
feels
too.
right. This feels
I do
right.
too. I tinker with it as I go along. I make this steak sweet and sour dish that my wife loves because I marinate the steak in a balsamic vinaigrette before I use it for and it's a homemade balsamic vinaigrette and marinate in that overnight before I cut up the steak and use it in a sweet and sour stir fry with all kinds of brown sugar and molasses and sesame oil and all kinds of flavors. But I'll taste it and I'll tinker with it. I'll chop up more garlic because we don't use what I call jarlic. We use the real garlic
Yes.
and put more of that in. But like your fiance, as I'm tasting it, I'll tinker with it. Same way I write a column on Sunday morning. I'll tinker with it as I'm going along.
Like it's funny. Like we often thought when we first started, like we're gonna cook together. Our cooking styles are different. She is more of the relaxed Southern style. I'm more of the physical graffiti, more of like physical graffiti, like loud. That's like tempo. Paul
I
Weston.
don't
I
want
have that.
it. I don't cook with people. I don't want anyone in the kitchen while I'm cooking. Get out of my kitchen. because I'm about to crank up the speakers, crank up the music, and get in my own
Same,
space. So
same,
just leave me alone. If you got questions, ask them before I start. Don't bug me,
same.
because I'm tasting everything. So yeah,
I'm the,
there's loud music in the house when I'm cooking. You know.
will there be a Syracuse Family Cookbook coming out?
Oh boy, I doubt it. That takes so much work. There was a time when I went through a period of life where I had stories that if I told you, you don't even know what they are, and if I told you, you would be stunned. About a 3-year period of my life where you actually have known me during that period, just didn't know this other stuff. And there were thoughts. There was actually one person who knew this story who wanted to hook me up with a movie producer. And I'm like, that's fine, but I got to write the book first. And I started writing the book, and I'm like, no one's going to read this. So the first 6 chapters of the book are still sitting in storage somewhere, you know.
Play you in the movie,
Um, the plan when I talked to the movie producer,
like
um,
all
well, he
Giamatti's
wanted to
about it.
write, he wanted the rights to the manuscript. And I trust him and I know him. And he had just gotten a manuscript approved that I don't remember the name of the baseball player, but he was the only white guy in the Negro Leagues in the
Oh,
1930s.
yeah.
And it's a great story. And he wrote a movie about him, which Paramount has since bought. Um, he wanted oh gosh, why can't I think of his name right now? Who was the Giamatti, Paul Giamatti.
Giamatti, yeah.
Yes.
I can
And
see that.
Connie Britton would be playing my wife.
See,
So
see, it works. I
it's
mean, I
yeah,
definitely can see that. What's coming up
yeah,
on Last Word and how can people interact with you on social media?
absolutely. You can go to lastwordonsports.com and get the college football page there. You've got the Instagram, we've got it up on Facebook, we've got Twitter, we've got Blue Sky, you've got me at Tony Bruin on both of those. We have your favorite bowl projections that is up as of Wednesday. We've got our Heisman poll, a lot of game previews for this week. We've only got 3 weeks left of the regular season, so it is down to the end of the race and a lot of critical games that we're covering.
It's funny. People who read my stuff ask me what I read. I'm like,
Mhm.
it is the writer's website. Like, Last Word on College Football is what writers read.
I
It's like,
appreciate that. We work hard at it. We take a lot of heat from corporate. I'm not kidding, because you won't find headlines that say shocking developments. There's very little that's shocking, right?
it,
The gambling scandal in the NBA is shocking. But you're not going to find that kind of kitschy headlines. You're not going to find a story that Deion Sanders walked out on a restaurant bill, because it's not true. The ones who did publish that got lots of clicks, though. You see what I'm saying? And this is the world that we have to live in. They got a lot of clicks for those articles, but it wasn't true. There was an article or a blurb that was published last night on AP, AP using AI as its sourcing, which it does a lot now, that had the final score of Michigan beating Wake Forest in basketball. Thing is, it wasn't true. The game wasn't even over when they published that. And at the bottom, you can see a little disclaimer. Please know that Grok, because that's what they used was Grok, does not check its sourcing. You may want to look into other sources for factual details. But this is what you and I are competing against now in this world. So I stand by my writers. They are good. They are devoted. They are committed. Are true. These guys talk college football 24/7. I wake up at 3 in the morning and see messages overnight from some of these guys. It just, this is who they are, man. They live it, and I stand by them. And so I encourage you to read them.
always, it is honestly the best college football website out there. And that's from someone who gets grief for saying that from my own boss. I don't care. I'm just going to say what I'm gonna call it what it is because it is. It is insightful. There's never been a bad article. Like it is one of those
I
things. It's
appreciate that.
like we talked about having an album because we're that age. No
Mhm.
skips.
Right.
No
Right.
skips. Tone, as always, my man, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Ad Drop Podcast.
All right, brother. Be well.